Right now, we are perceiving through our senses, hearing with our ears, seeing through our eyes, and we can sense with the feeling of touch. Those perceptions are all being received by the senses and imaged in the brain. But the ultimate recipient of that information is our consciousness. It is the perceiver that is looking through the lenses of our senses. Consciousness is the central point of every religion, because it is the center point of any experience of living, of existing. Our state of consciousness determines our experience of life. We need to develop our consciousness if we want to improve our experience of living. To do so, we need to recognize it and utilize it in the present moment. We need to evaluate our experience of consciousness and perception. An easy way to evaluate our degree of conscious perception is by testing our memory. My mother-in-law can describe infinite details of any moment from her life. Her children are always astonished at her incredible memory. The reason is simple. She pays attention in the moment. She's very attentive in the moment, even now when she's quite old. On the other hand, some of her children cannot remember what they said or did a few hours ago. They regularly forget things, lose track of what they're doing, and she has to remind them. They do not pay attention like she does. They are very distracted, very much in their heads, thinking or daydreaming, like most people nowadays, while she is present in the moment, observing. Most of us are not really aware. That is why we forget things, make foolish mistakes, and do not remember much about the past, because we weren't present. For example, when we're cooking, our awareness is supposedly on the cooking, but mostly we're thinking, daydreaming. So while we are cooking, we are thinking, I have this problem and I need to solve it. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. So our hands are doing the cooking, but our attention is distracted. Or maybe we are cooking while we're watching some show. Our attention is bouncing around from a thought to an emotion to whatever's happening on our phone, whatever's happening in the other room. We're paying attention to many things at once, which means that our attention is dispersed, distracted, not consistent or strong. It's always leaping from one thing to the next. And that is our state of consciousness, shallow and distracted. That's why later we don't really remember much. By the way, when you cook food that way, your food won't be that good. If you really pay attention to what you're cooking, it'll come out better. We can call that quality of consciousness a wild mind. Some say monkey mind. It is a very distracted state, and it is characterized by a lack of knowing. It has a presence of uncertainty, anxiety, doubt, many other qualities. We have a surging mind with thoughts that are constantly demanding attention and different sensations on the body that are constantly demanding attention. And so we leap from one to the next, always distracted. In other words, our state of consciousness is a chaos of random, constantly shifting thoughts, emotions, and sensations. Always drifting, unpredictable, unreliable. That is the state of consciousness of most people. We think it's normal. It isn't. And most people are not aware of this. But that is exactly what has to change if we want to stop suffering. We have 3 brains. That is, we have 3 psychological centers of activity: thoughts in our head, emotions in our heart, and impulses in our body. These are 3 areas of psychological functioning. In our current state of consciousness, each one of these 3 operates without our awareness or control. While we are thinking about one thing, we also have feelings related to something else, our mood. And physically, we're doing something altogether different. Our 3 brains are not integrated, under conscious control, focused on one thing. We are not aware of them, and so we are not controlling them, and this leads us to problems. If you think that you are conscious and you can control your 3 brains, then you should be able to sit perfectly still for hours without tapping your foot or fidgeting or shifting around, and have no thoughts, and your heart will be silent, serene, and happy. Can you do that? Few people can control their 3 brains, but all of us should be able to. Instead, each of us has developed the tendency to only use one rather than the others. Some of us live emotionally, some intellectually, and others impulsively. We think that this makes us skillful, unique, and effective, but it's actually the opposite. Rather than using all of our capabilities in a balanced way, using each tool where it is most suited, we instead only use one tool for everything. The result is that we are ineffective, and we also misunderstand other people. Someone who relies only on their intellect is not understood by someone who relies on their impulses, physicality. They don't understand things the same way, so they struggle to understand each other and have harmony. The sum of all this is that we're confused but don't realize why. This confusion is also why we cannot meditate or experience the reality of divinity. We try to meditate and we try to experience divinity using that one tool that we like, but it is the wrong tool. Emotional people want to meditate emotionally. Intellectuals want to experience God through their ideas and theories. The impulsive people, physical-oriented people, want to experience divinity through their body, through sensations. Naturally, all of this only results in failure. The only way to experience divinity is through the consciousness, not the intellect, not emotions, not sensations. Every religion explained how to avoid falling into this mistake, but humanity has not understood the message. Today we're going to examine how yoga explains it. We find it useful because it's easy to understand and easy to apply in our life. Most people think yoga is for stretching and contorting the body, but that is not real yoga. Swami Shivananda explained this very well. He said, the word yoga comes from the root which means to join. And in its spiritual sense, it is that process by which the human spirit is brought into near and conscious communion with, or is merged in, the divine spirit. Patanjali defines yoga as the suspension of all the functions of the mind. As such, any book on yoga which does not deal with these 3 aspects of the subject, mind, its functions, and the method of suspending them, can be safely laid aside as unreliable and incomplete. So, what Swami Shivananda is saying is, real yoga is about psychology, not the body. The most important teaching of yoga is the scripture called the Bhagavad Gita. This is one of the most important books of Hinduism, and presents a teaching given by Krishna. Krishna is an embodiment of Christ, just like Jesus, Avalokiteshvara, Heracles, and many others. The Bhagavad Gita gives the best explanation of yoga. Krishna explains that yoga is the method through which we can unite again with our true identity. Right now, we are totally ignorant of our true identity, and that is why we suffer so much. And Krishna explains how we do this through all three of our brains. Krishna teaches how to act, to use our skill, our energy, our body, to act in an upright way. This is called karma yoga. This is how to perform any action so the consequences liberate us from suffering and lead us towards integration with divinity. Krishna also teaches bhakti yoga, how to use our emotional brain, related with the heart, to liberate us from suffering and lead us towards integration with divinity. Krishna also teaches jnana yoga, how to use our intellectual brain to liberate us from suffering and lead us towards integration with divinity. The problem is that people only want to do what is comfortable to them. The intellectual types want to follow only the intellectual approach to religion, jnana yoga, while the devotional types want to approach religion devotionally, emotionally, through bhakti yoga. And the action or impulsive types don't want to study with the intellect or be devotional with their heart. They want to act using the body and sensations, doing service or pilgrimages or exercises, etc., through karma yoga. In each case, the result is that they do not change. They do not balance their three brains. Instead, they just keep behaving as they always have, just spiritually, with the same weaknesses that they have always had. Later, because they don't change, they blame the religion for not giving them what was promised. So there are many intellectual people who only want to read and study their scriptures. They seek intellectual stimulation. They are only interested in jnana yoga theories. They could be Christian, Jewish, Muslim, but they don't want to change the way they live their daily lives, how they act and engage with others. They don't want to do anything emotionally, like prayer. They're not interested in these things. They just like the ideas, the philosophies. There are people who just want to go to church or temple and have that devotional, emotional connection, to be with their community singing songs. They seek emotional stimulation, but they do not really want to study anything or understand anything with their intellect, and they don't want to change how they behave. Then there's the third type, the impulsive physical type, who seek physical stimulation. They enjoy rituals, exercises, practices, prostrations, circumambulations, whatever type of physical actions their religion promotes, but they avoid the emotional and intellectual aspects. So each of these three types of people do not want to change. Thus, they will not change. Neither will their experience of life. We need all three aspects in order to be a balanced person. If you only exercise one arm, that arm will get strong, but the rest of your body will be weak, and you'll look strange. It's better if you exercise your whole body. The same principle applies to our psychology. When we exercise all the parts of ourselves, then we strengthen completely. This is the basis of real yoga, real religion. The real method is to integrate all three yogas. and to know from experience how to use them all simultaneously. And the key to this is balance in our daily life. Each day, we use the body, we use our emotion, and we use our intellect. And we use them all with attention, with awareness. By doing that, we unify the three paths, the three types of yoga, into a fourth one. In Hinduism, it's called Raja Yoga. And this means the royal union, the royal path. It's called royal because it is superior to the other three. Raja Yoga teaches how to awaken consciousness and integrate all three brains. Raja Yoga is about meditation. This is what we study. We study and apply a complete system that strengthens each part of us and unifies them. We're not just studying with the intellect or the heart, doing devotional practice, and we're not just moving the physical body. We learn to use them all integrated, but most importantly, we learn to use them consciously. The main text of Raja Yoga is Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Raja Yoga, the royal yoga, is also called Ashtanga Yoga, which means eight-limbed, because it has 8 fundamentals, 8 aspects. The 8 steps of Raja Yoga are universal. They are like a map. A map gives a route that anyone can follow, no matter where they're from or what language they speak. A map describes a place that exists, and anyone who follows the map can reach that goal. Raja Yoga is like that. It's not a belief. It's not only Indian. Raja Yoga can be applied to any religion because, in fact, every genuine religion describes the same steps, just with different names. The 8 steps of Raja Yoga are the essential stages of reaching union with reality, divinity. In other words, if you want to experience reality, the truth, God, Allah, Brahma, you have to experience these 8 steps. You can call them by other names or by no names, but these are not theoretical steps. They are scientific, exact, and precise, and refer to qualities of consciousness or perception. If you learn what these are through your own experience, you will experience yoga, no matter what religion you follow. Stated another way, all saints, masters, Buddhas experienced reality, and they did so because their consciousness passed through these 8 steps, even if they did not know these words. Let us now examine these 8 steps. Number 1, Yama, restraint. The basis and beginning of any approach to spirituality is ethics. To be ethical. The first thing you learn in any religion is what behaviors to stop. Don't smoke, don't drink, don't sleep around, don't do drugs, don't steal, don't kill, etc. Every beginner learns things they should not be doing. Nowadays, people think, why are they telling me what to do? And there's a reason. Cause and effect, action and consequence. Behaviors produce corresponding consequences. The way you act produces the results in your life. There are no exceptions to this. It's not about beliefs. It's about nature, physics, energy. When you are kind, when you smile, others smile. They can't help it. That kind attitude, a happy attitude, produces a result. This is not a belief. It's just how nature works. When you frown or when you're angry, that anger provokes a result in other people. This is unavoidable. It's just how nature works. Similarly, if we want to unite with divinity, we have to stop the behaviors that prevent that union. That's Yama, restraint. The second step is Niyama, observances. And these are actions that we should be doing. We're going to come back to this in a few minutes. The third, asana, a relaxed posture. Of course, this appears at first glance to be related to the physical body only. Most people think asana means hatha yoga postures, what people usually think yoga is limited to. And they think that this step means that you have to sit in the postures of hatha yoga. That's not true. Asana really indicates that our posture needs to be a balance of relaxation and attentiveness. Relaxation is a spiritual requisite. Tension is resistance, conflict. So to relax is to let that tension go and not be in conflict. Many people who give up trying to learn meditation simply failed here. They couldn't relax. So the third step, asana, relates to learning to relax. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally. Number 4 is pranayama, control of energy. Usually this word pranayama is interpreted as breath control or breathing exercises, but it's really about more than that. Vivekananda said breathing has very little to do with it. Pranayama is about controlling energy. Prana is our life force, our vital energy. It's the root energy of all living things, the root creative force of life. When you learn pranayama, you learn to control that energy and harness it for your spiritual practice and for the development of your consciousness. So think about this logically. It's not that complicated. If you're tense, if your muscles are tight and tense, energy can't move. And usually we're tense, we can't relax from step 3, because in the first steps, 1 and 2, Yama and Niyama, we did things we shouldn't have done. We caused conflict. So if in steps 1 and 2, we stop doing things we shouldn't do, and we adopt behaviors that we should do, then step 3 becomes easy. We can relax. We didn't do anything harmful. We did good things. We feel good. Easy to relax then. That means in step 4, pranayama, the energy can move. Step 5 is pratyahara, withdrawal. Pratyahara is to withdraw attention from physicality, from all the senses. This is where one prepares for meditation. It's a state of consciousness in which you withdraw from the external world in order to turn inward. Pratyahara is a special state of consciousness. It's not simply looking within. It is a state where our consciousness is becoming more steady, and our perceptions of external things through the senses become abstracted. This is why it is called withdrawal. Step number 6 is Dharana, concentration. So in the 5th step, you learn to withdraw attention from the senses. And then you can enter the 6th, which is real concentration, Dharana. Real concentration is the ability to place attention on one thing and not be distracted from it for as long as you want. In our current state, we don't have that ability. We are easily distracted. We try to concentrate, but we have so many thoughts, emotions, worries, fears, desires, so much anxiety, so many things to think about and things we want to do. We really don't get far with any one activity. Even when we're doing one thing, we're thinking of something else. So this has to change if we want to access other states of consciousness at will, to be able to meditate or go out of our body. You have to learn to concentrate very well. Concentration is required in order for us to reach the next steps of Raja Yoga. Step 7 is Dhyana, meditation. Dhyana is actual meditation. This is a state in which our consciousness is focused on something specific. Here in step 7, with total concentration, our attention becomes completely absorbed in that concentration. This is Dhyana, meditation. It is a state of consciousness. The next step, 8, is Samadhi. We can call this the experience of reality. From that state of Dhyana, meditation, we can enter this final state of yoga, which is called Samadhi. And this is where we experience reality. Samadhi is yoga itself. It is union. So this is explained in the first 3 lines of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras that say, "Now an exposition of Raja Yoga will be given. Yoga is the suspension of the modifications of the mind. Then the seer, the yogi, rests in her own nature." It is here in Samadhi where you experience who you truly are. And this arises because you have set your body and mind in a state of peace, and you have withdrawn perception from external things, so that the consciousness can perceive and experience itself. This is where we discover our true nature. In Buddhism, this is called Tathagata Garbha, Buddha nature. It is our true identity. In that experience, there is no suffering. Instead, there is profound peace and joy, an all-embracing love, and the ability to observe anything and understand it. And this is its value. This is why meditation is so important. In the state of Samadhi, your consciousness is not filtered by any defect or misperception. It sees the truth. Thus, when you call up in that state any situation in your life that's causing pain, you can see the truth of it. You can understand it. And that is why the founder of every religion has said, real religions are about kindness, love, compassion, generosity, all the virtues that express our true nature. None of this has anything to do with belief. It has to do with experiencing reality, our true nature, and then expressing that in each action. So we learn meditation in order to be that, to become better. Our true nature cannot be found outside of us, in some temple or a book or a movement, following some person. You can't find it in a teacher. You can only find it in yourself. But right now, you can't perceive that because of the condition of your consciousness. So if you learn these simple steps, basically learning how to perceive properly, you learn to withdraw attention from everything outwards, place attention inwardly, and perceive yourself for what you truly are. Yoga is founded on the first 2 steps of these 8. And to experience yoga, the experience of our true nature, depends on the first 2 steps, Yama and Niyama. So we're going to study those now. Yama is restraint. Yoga begins by restraining harmful actions. The first aspect of Yama, and therefore the first step of yoga is Ahimsa. This word literally means without harm. Most people think Ahimsa just means nonviolence, such as if you protest some injustice and you don't beat anybody up. Some think Ahimsa means one should be a pacifist. But really, Ahimsa is compassion. It is to have the right attitude towards others. Ahimsa is part of Yama, restraint, because in order to have the attitude of not harming, compassion, we have to restrain our ego, our pride, our anger, our envy, our lust, all of our selfishness. By restraining our selfish attitude and having awareness of it, we can then allow our true nature to begin to express itself, which is altruism, generosity, kindness. The second restraint is Satyam, which means truthfulness. Satyam means we have to stop lying. We have to be honest, truthful, not only with other people, but with ourselves. Third, Asteya, is to not steal. We may not steal material things, but we do steal time, energy, attention. When we criticize someone, we steal their reputation. When we mock someone, we steal their dignity. When we cut in line or cheat others in any way, we are stealing from them. Fourth is Brahmacharya, to restrain lust and to have sexual purity. In order to unite with divinity, we must acquire sexual purity, physically and psychologically. This is not optional or negotiable. Divinity has no lust at all. So if you want to merge with divinity, you must have no lust at all. However, this does not mean to renounce sex. Sex is an important part of life and spirituality, but we need to make it pure. Fifth, Aparigraha, to restrain desire. This is renunciation, freedom from desire. These 5 aspects of Yama are difficult for us, especially in the modern era, because we are constantly being assailed with the encouragement to do their opposite. Every TV show now is about Ahimsa, cruelty, violence, not merely physically, but mentally, emotionally. Most of what's displayed in modern culture is not true. There's no truthfulness, no Satyam. Throughout the internet and all forms of media, there's so many lies. Nothing is what it appears to be. Asteya, to not steal. In the modern world, everyone is stealing from everyone else, trying to get whatever they can for nothing. The wealthy acquire their wealth by taking it from others. Everyone wants to steal the position above their own, to get ahead. We steal the ideas and creations of others and present them as our own. We steal energy. We steal time. And Brahmacharya? Obviously, this humanity has no interest in sexual purity. Most people are only interested in lust, not realizing that lust is the polar opposite of what is required for any spiritual development. And fifth, Aparigraha, renunciation. Everybody wants to have a spiritual life and feed all of their desires at the same time. That's not possible. So that's Yama, restraint. Next is Niyama, precepts. This is the second step of the 8-limbed Raja Yoga. First in Niyama is Saucha, is to have purity. This is not only physically, but psychologically. We need to be pure, clean. Some people interpret Saucha as related to having clean clothes and being showered. And that's part of it. But the real meaning is to be psychologically clean. We need to clean our mind. And that's not easy, especially nowadays. We are constantly exposed to a lot of filthy things. All the topics of conversation are about filthiness. Saucha also implies to be pure-hearted and to have integrity. Second is Santosha, to have contentment, to be happy with what you have, to recognize what you have and be grateful, not only for material things, but for the people in your life, the circumstances, even when they're difficult. Third is tapas, austerity or penance. Traditionally, tapas is looked at as behaviors you adopt in order to pay karma. Therefore, people go on pilgrimages, or they do prostrations, they chant mantras or prayers, or they may renounce things like foods. And these are all considered tapas or austerities. And there's value in those approaches to spirituality. But we need to look at tapas in a deeper way. When you're on the real spiritual path, your inner divinity helps you. And the chief way that your divinity helps you is to put you in circumstances that bring out your defects so you can see them. So you face difficulties. With Niyama, we have to learn to be grateful for our difficulties, to accept them as ordeals, trials, challenges. So one of the chief skills that a student needs to learn is to accept circumstances as tapas, penance. Our problems reveal our defects, our weaknesses, our shortcomings. When we see them, we can change them. So we should be happy to see them. So we learn to take all difficulties as spiritual challenges, austerities that we overcome through virtue. Next, Svadhyaya is the study of scriptures. It's not memorization, but comprehension. Remember, all of these steps of Yama and Niyama relate to all three brains. So Svadhyaya is not about intellectual understanding, intellectual memorization. It's about comprehension, to consciously understand what is in a scripture. And the only way we can do that is if we experience it. In ancient times, students would read a sentence of a scripture, then meditate on it for as many days or weeks as it took until they fully understood it. Only then would they go on to the next sentence. When you really comprehend a scripture, you know it consciously. This is not an intellectual thing. It's not a belief. When you comprehend a scripture, you will never forget it, even after death. The last precept of Niyama is Ishvara-Pranidhana. Usually this is translated as surrendering to God, but we prefer to call it self-remembering. The Sanskrit word Ishvara is a reference to the innermost, the divinity that's inside each of us. The word pranidhana means to remember, to perceive, to pay attention. So when you translate Ishvara-Pranidhana as surrendering to God, it doesn't convey the active, perceptive component of this precept, but self-remembering does. Self-remembering is a moment-to-moment action of consciousness. It isn't passive, and it's not just a belief. Ishvara-Pranidhana is to be actively aware of the presence of divinity in each moment. Since we do not yet perceive divinity, we begin with at least remembering that divinity is there and reaching out with our awareness at all times and all places, trying to sense it, This is an exercise of awareness and attention. So in synthesis, Yama and Niyama are conscious ethics. These 10 behaviors are not mechanical, automatic. They are conscious. Yama and Niyama are about developing moment-to-moment awareness of our psychological tendencies. This is the first step of real yoga, self-awareness. If you are unconscious, distracted, then you're not performing these actions. You're asleep. To enter yoga, union with divinity, first, you must be aware of yourself from moment to moment. Self-observation is an exercise of attention. To observe oneself is to be an indifferent observer of the facts of one's psyche. True self-observation is an active work of directed attention, without the interference of thought, emotion, or sensations. That is, observation occurs without thoughts, feelings, or sensations. Thinking about observing is thinking. Observation is not thought. And conscious observation is not just the perception of images through your physical body. Observation is an action of consciousness. It is to be aware of observing. In moment-to-moment awareness, be conscious of your 3 brains. Learn to see which one you mechanically rely on the most, and learn to change that. Learn instead to use your 3 brains in a balanced way. Learn how to turn them on and off, to use them when you need them, and let them rest when you don't. With moment-to-moment awareness, engage these 10 behaviors of Yama and Niyama. That is the beginning of meditation and the path to your inner divinity. Learn to observe yourself impartially, continually, from moment to moment. In this way, meditation becomes easy. So in other words, we're saying meditation begins right now in everything you do by paying attention.